There we are. We're live. Hello, hello. Hi, Kristi. How are you?
Good. How are you, Linda?
I'm good. I would be better if I wasn't on my phone. I'm just going to acknowledge that right out front because I had an internet issue, so I'm here on my phone. And then, it makes me feel like, a little weird on my phone, but I'm good. And I'm so happy to speak with you and to whomever comes on. So as you're hopping in, or as you notice this, or if you watch the replay later, my name is Linda Downey. I'm a transformational health and spiritual coach. This is my friend and colleague, Kristi Cirignano, who's a functional wellness coach as well. We've been friends and kind of working together in different ways for the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years maybe. And Kristi specializes in working with women with autoimmune, thyroid, and hormone issues. And I work specifically with women around stress and anxiety and overwhelm. So we thought it would be great to put those conversations together and really share with you how they relate to each other. So, Kristi, do you want to go ahead and say anything about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, thank you so much, Linda. I always love these conversations with you so much. And just for all of you guys watching, when Linda and I do these lives, it's never scripted or really planned out. We kind of pick a topic and then we just chat about it. And we have a lot of the same similar interests and passions. And this is a topic that both of us feel really passionately about. And so I'm excited to just have this really organic conversation about autoimmunity and the connection with stress. So like Linda said, I work primarily with women who want to reverse autoimmune diseases, thyroid dysfunction, or hormone imbalances. And all three of those things are very much interrelated. And stress plays a really huge role. Emotional stress plays a really big role in autoimmune disease and all of these chronic disease dynamics.
Yeah. Yeah, they do. And I have had autoimmune diagnoses, multiple autoimmune conditions. I think you also have. Do you have Hashimoto's?
I do not have any official autoimmune diagnoses, but I was well along the path
Mm.
to probably what I suspect was rheumatoid arthritis or lupus had I gone that route and actually sought out a diagnosis. But because I do what I do and I know what I know, I recognized what was happening and I just reversed it.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Did the
Which
work
is
I needed to
possible.
do to reverse it. I didn't feel like I needed a label in order to do that.
Yeah. Yes. And that's really, if there's one thing whoever's listening, and if you watch the replay later, please say hello. First of all, this is streaming in multiple places, probably 5 at least different places. So we can't see all the comments in the moment, but we will definitely both go back and answer anything. And if you're in my tribe and you have a question for Kristi, just say Kristi, et cetera, and I'll make sure she gets that answer to you. But what we do want you to know is the autoimmunity, the symptoms are reversible. And you may not be getting that message from your doctor because mostly they know how to treat your symptoms, how to give you a prescription that will help you feel better or keep those symptoms at bay or shut down your immune system so you don't keep having an autoimmune response. But we really love to look at, well, why does that happen? It's not just you got dealt a bad hand or, you know, there's bad genes in your family. You may have that, but it's so much more about how you're living and what you're doing, and you can reverse it. I got my first autoimmune condition in my 20s, ulcerative colitis. So, for those of you who have gut issues, health issues often, almost always start with a gut telling you there's a problem, right? You might just notice foods bother you, or you always feel bloated, or you just have maybe more significant things. So that's how it started for me. And then thyroid issues, I was diagnosed with Graves' disease first, which is hyperthyroidism, autoimmune thyroidism, and then Hashimoto's and other things along the way. So it was after all of that, of really struggling, that I went back to school. So Kristi was so smart to catch it out in front and make sure it didn't continue. But let's talk about how stress. So Kristi, when you said I caught it and I was able to reverse it. What were you noticing about your life?
Yeah, so when my youngest daughter was born, she is now 8, almost 9 in just a couple weeks, and she didn't sleep for the first 2 years of her life, and so it was a really exhausting, stressful period of time, and I started noticing just exhaustion, first of all, just almost debilitating fatigue, which I, in the beginning, just chalked up to the fact that I wasn't getting any sleep because she didn't sleep. Um, but then it moved into really significant joint pain. My feet, my ankles, my knees were just in pain all of the time. And by the end of the day, I would just crawl into bed in so much pain. And I started having weird skin issues, kind of the classic lupus butterfly rosacea rash. But also, like on my arms and legs, it would almost look like a sunburn, and then it would peel and it was itchy and burning. And I would kind of go through these cycles. And then the real tipping point, this is what we do as women. We have so much on our plates that we just ignore all of these things until it becomes like those little signals that our body is sending us have to get louder and louder and louder until it becomes something we just cannot ignore anymore. And so I remember really clearly when Juliet was, I think, had just turned 2. It was New Year's Eve, and we were at some friend's house spending the night, having a New Year's Eve party, and we were spending the night there. And I crawled into bed in their guest room, and I looked down, and my knees were black and blue, like massive bruises on both knees. And I hadn't fallen. There was no accident or injury that had caused that. And I was in so much pain and I was so tired. And I showed my husband and I said, okay, this is not acceptable anymore. Right? This stops now. And so as we were driving home on New Year's Day, I made some resolutions and decided these are the list of actions that I'm going to take to fix this. And a month into this, I had reversed most of those symptoms, not all of them. I was also able to order labs for myself and monitor my labs and just paying attention to my symptoms. And within 4 to 6 weeks, I had reversed most of that. Just through some pretty simple changes to food and lifestyle, and then working on sleep, rearranging some things in our lives to make sure I was getting adequate sleep, because you must have sleep in order for your body to heal, and working on stress. So it was sort of a gradual peeling back of the different layers, and then me saying, okay, what's the next thing I need to address? What's the next thing? And stress was a huge, huge piece of it that I really had to dig into and take a close look at for myself. And we all have these incredibly stressful lives where we just go, go, go nonstop. And we, as women, we put ourselves and our health and wellness last generally and take care of everyone else around us, our children and our partners and our homes and our work. And we can't just eliminate the stressors. That's not an option for most of us. Like, unless we win the lottery tomorrow and move to a tropical island where we can sit on the beach and sip mojitos, which just isn't going to happen for most of us. So I really had to take a look at, how do I change how I am thinking about and responding to the stressors in my life, right? It's all out there. None of that is going to change. So what has to change is here. What has to change is within me, and how I am thinking about and responding to the stress and the stress response that I'm creating in my own body with my thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I just want to take a moment and explain why stress has the impact that it does. Like, what happens? Because so many times people say, yeah, I'm stressed. Life is stressful, or everybody's stressed. Well, this understanding really what's happening is so important. And then I want to put it too a little bit in terms of long-term stress. But what happens is stress is really your body's response to any event. And it's when your nervous system says there's danger there or there's a problem. then we go into fight or flight, it's called, typically. So we need to respond to this problem. And then there's a whole cascade of hormones and biochemicals that get produced instantaneously to allow your body to go handle that problem. What happens is all of the things that would happen when you're not stressed, like good immune function, good digestion, good hormone balance, all of those things get turned off for the moment because the body says, we don't have time or resources to deal with that. We'll go fight that virus later. We'll go digest that food at another time. We need everything here. And so the body is now in this chemical soup, I call it. When I used to cook a lot in the crock pot, I would be like, what's in your crock pot soup, right? In your body, what's in there? And when we stay in that state over and over and over again with very little time leaving the state, which is why Kristi said sleep is critical. When we spend very little time coming out of that into a safety mode, into a rest mode, then things start to become actually changed, and the ability to turn them on and shut them off gets very warped, very dulled, and eventually dysfunctional. So with autoimmune, the immune system is attacking the body that it's meant to protect. That's what's essentially happening, whether it shows up as lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, thyroid issues. There's a million of them. However it shows up might be based on, or is based on, your particular body and genetics, but they all have some similar root causes. So that's why Kristi said it doesn't really matter what the diagnosis is. It doesn't matter if you have lupus and you have rheumatoid arthritis and I have Hashimoto's. We would look at and go to work at with all of the same initial steps, right? Right, Kristi?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I always talk about autoimmune disease, um, or your immune system in general in terms of a spectrum. So what you want to be is right in the middle of the spectrum, in the place of balance and health. And when our immune systems are bombarded with chemicals in our food, chemicals in our environment, pathogens all around us in the forms of viruses and bacteria and fungal infections and parasites, and then you add in emotional stress from the world around us, and being in this stressed state that Linda just described so well, with this flood of hormones and chemicals in our body all the time, telling our immune system, we don't have time to deal with that right now. We have to focus on this immediate threat. This tiger that we're being chased by is what our body thinks, right? Our immune system becomes both downregulated by the stress hormones and at the same time hypervigilant about things that aren't necessarily threats. So I always kind of use the analogy of your immune system is like the security guard in a calm, peaceful bank or office building. And its primary job is just to be present, to be alert and surveilling the scene, watching for threats, but not acting, right? In an ideal situation, your immune system doesn't have to act. But our modern world and our modern bodies in this crazy world that we live in are not a quiet bank or a quiet office building. They are being bombarded by toxic insults all day, every day, from all of the things that I just described, the chemicals in our environment, in our food, that we spray on our lawn, that we slather on our bodies with lotions and perfumes, and our own thoughts, right? These stressful thoughts that trigger a cascade of stress hormones in our body. And what happens is this poor security guard is no longer working in a quiet bank or office building. He is being bombarded with threats nonstop, all day, every day. He doesn't have time to eat lunch. He doesn't have time to go home to sleep. He doesn't have time to pee. And eventually, he's overwrought and hypervigilant and having to respond to so many different things that our immune system begins to, in a sense, misfire and view that potted plant in the corner of the office building as a threat, or the little grandma coming through the metal detector as a threat and starts attacking things that aren't actually threats. So, what we have to do is reduce those stressors, right? The physiological stressors and the emotional stressors to calm and soothe the immune system and to bring it back into balance.
Yeah. Yep. And which is what Kristi does so well with all of it. But if you're somebody who's really looking for, like, how do I know what toxins are in my body? How do I know, is it pesticides? Is it mold? Is it whatever? Like, that's Kristi's really, really gifted at helping people get to those root causes. I have really decided to focus because of my own life history and what I saw in my journey. I focus specifically on the stress and anxiety and when we've lived chronically in that place. So the thinking, the rewiring, the thoughts, the emotions that we stay stuck in, which often have been there for decades. So if you've, I actually just this week, anticipating this conversation, I posted something from Dr. Gabor Mate. If you know who he is, it was a repost from TikTok, and there's actually 6 parts. I'll continue to post that. But Dr. Mate, if you don't know who he is a physician. He's well into his 70s. He's been an expert for many years, a medical doctor, and he works with people. He's considered a trauma expert because he really looks at the impact of trauma. Now, trauma can be anything that makes you shift into fight or flight. So for some people, when they hear the word trauma, they go, I don't have any trauma. Yes, I'm always stressed out. Yes, I'm anxious, but I didn't have any trauma as a kid. My childhood was great. Or even, through life, it's not only in childhood, but that's what they think. But when we look, there are things that happen where life didn't feel safe for some reason. It might have been a bully in the schoolyard. It might have been a teacher who corrected and embarrassed you in front of the classroom when you were 6 or 7. And now, like that, I'm terrible, I'm not good enough. That messaging never gets turned off. And now we're in that fight or flight because if I'm not good enough, if I'm now shameful or embarrassed, I need to be careful and keep my guard up in the world all the time. So that's the work that I do, because what Dr. Mate has said and other experts is really, if you look at the immune system's job, it is to protect us, right? Like Kristi, that I love that. I'll be using that again, that security guard in the bank, because that's it's just so clear to see. So if that is our job, and we are emotionally disconnected from ourselves. So our physical body and our emotional body are not two different things. Our mental body, our emotional body, our physical body, and our spiritual body are all a part of us. They all need to be working together. They all need to be supported. So the physical expression is the immune function. The emotional / spiritual expression is, I don't really know who I am. I don't think I'm good enough. I don't feel like I'm worthy to be loved or to have things. I don't feel safe. That would be the spiritual / emotional. I'm just putting them together to make it easy. And then the mental body would be the thoughts of, I can't trust people. I have to do this all. I better be on time. I hate it when I'm not on time. I got, like, the thoughts that are driven by those feelings and emotions. So now we're disconnecting from ourselves. And when we do that, it's the perfect storm for the immune system to disconnect from the body that it's here to protect. When we start to rest, primarily rest, and let the messaging go, do all the work that Kristi does with all of the toxins, and then we start to change that messaging, the immune system can go, oh, that is a potted plant. Oh, okay, hold on. Oh, that is a grandma. Okay, hold on. I don't need to go attacking these things, and symptoms can shut down. I have a woman who just this summer I started working with, and she just was completing the Return to You program. Her name is Donna, diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. And she just shared with our group like 2 weeks ago She's probably, I don't know however old she is, but she's probably had this for a while. And her doctor was like, I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it. Her markers are changing. Her symptoms are gone. She doesn't feel symptoms. Her blood work is starting to match what she feels. She's seeing the changes in her blood work. And the doctor's like, there was no change in prescription. There was no change in anything other than she took on, yeah, thanks. It's pretty awesome. She took on loving herself. She took on releasing the messaging. She took on all the places where she was fearful, and we rewired that. So that's the connection that I want to make sure you understand. The immune system and having an autoimmune diagnosis is not this thing that's out there. I just got this and that's all it is. No, it's very much connected to how you live your life now and how you've been living your life. Because autoimmune, Kristi, do you feel the same way? I feel like autoimmune
Absolutely.
symptoms, by the time they show up, it's been going on for a very long time.
Very long time. Usually these dynamics have been growing and evolving for years, if not decades,
Yeah.
of a person's life. And I love the way you explain that, Linda, and I love the work you do, because I think when we talk about the stressors, I mean, there are so many different physical or physiological stressors that we need to look at. There is the emotional stress, right? Which begins with your conscious thoughts. Your conscious thoughts are what trigger that cascade of stress hormones in your body. But then we have to go even a layer deeper. I work with clients a lot on shifting those conscious thoughts and learning to just turn off that stress response, just like you would flip a light switch, and
Yeah.
choosing not to get stressed, right? We get to choose. It's so empowering to know that, like, it doesn't matter what's going on out here around us. We get to choose whether we are stressed by those potential stressors or not. But then it goes a layer even deeper than our conscious thoughts to our subconscious thoughts and our core programming and beliefs that come as a result of things that happen to us in the womb or in our first 7 years of life or later in life, or even sometimes trauma that we inherited from our ancestors. Right.
Absolutely.
And some of this might seem a little woo woo to some of you guys, but I promise you it is not. This is very real. It is very well rooted in science. There's so much research um, around ancestral trauma coming, especially from your grandparents who perhaps lived through a war or lived through famine. And that trauma can be encoded in your DNA and can be sometimes the root cause of your nervous system being dysregulated and living in fight or flight in the way that Linda described, leading to, over many years or decades, an autoimmune disease. And so we have to address all of these different layers, the obvious physical things of the way that we are choosing to live our lives, but then keep digging even deeper and even deeper.
Yeah. I just shared like a week or so ago a study. It was researchers studied mice. Speaking, this is about generational trauma. And if you have grandparents, um, anybody's like ancestors, it changes the DNA when we are stressed and there's a trauma response that doesn't get processed through and allow the body to return to normal. That DNA change, like being in a war, will get passed down. So the researchers, the study that I was referencing was they took a group of mice, not just a couple, like a big group of mice, and what they did was they put a scent of, I think it was cherry almond, which I love that scent. There's actually a skin lotion that used to, years ago when I put lotions on my body, cherry almond. But every time they put that scent in where the mice were, they would give them a little electric shock. So after however many times it took, the mice had a stress response as soon as they smelled that very particular scent. Then what they did was they kept track of the offspring. They're called pups, the mice pups, for 6 generations down. Each of those generations also had a stress response when they smelled the smell, even though they had never ever been shocked once. They would smell the smell and be stressed, their bodies. So that showed 6 generations of trauma being passed down in mice. And they've also done it with people, right? But that's just such an easy research thing to reference to really have you see. So what I'd like you to think of is, think of your family, think of culturally, what is the group that you come from culturally, because there's the generational specificity, specifics, let me go with that, of your particular family, right? Your grandfather in the war, your grandmother who whatever, but then there's the cultural group that you live in, and what have they gone through as a group, generation after generation after generation? And was that trauma ever truly allowed to be processed out? When I look at different groups, so let's go back to individually. If you grew up in a household where somebody said to you, you want to cry? I'll give you something to cry about. Or keep a stiff upper lip. What's wrong with you? Or that happened yesterday. Why are you still upset? Grow up, get over it. It was yesterday. If you had those things in your household, that's your particular messaging. If you are a member of a cultural group that the rest of the world has said to them over and over again, what's your problem? Give it up, stop complaining. But nobody ever really allowed the healing to happen. It's the same thing, and it's being passed generationally in a huge collective. And just look in our world. What's going on in our world, right? So, speaking to that, do you know that there are 85 million people who have autoimmune conditions? And of that, it might even be more, because I actually looked that up a couple of years ago. It might be more at this point. And most of those are women. Most of the people diagnosed with autoimmune, and we're keeping this conversation around autoimmune, but you could apply it to cancer, because an immune system that's doing its job well will see cancer cells before they start to multiply. They'll surround it and take it out, and people will move on. We're all exposed to cancer cells all the time. What makes one person's body handle it and not someone else's? So think about your family, your cultural group, your own personal history, and how has stress played a role in your body and in your life on an ongoing basis? And what's your health telling you about that if you put all of this conversation in place?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think those are all such incredibly powerful things to explore. And we tend to have kind of a limited view of things in our modern world, where we were all, for the most part, raised with a pretty conventional medical mindset that you need the diagnosis and then the standard of care protocol that arises out of that diagnosis, and you take the prescription medications to manage your symptoms when it comes to autoimmunity. And we're told that there is no cure, that there's no way to reverse autoimmune disease. And it's simply not true, you guys. It
Not
is
true.
simply not true. And if that's what you're being told, you need to seek out another perspective and someone who has done the work to reverse these things and has seen, I don't even know how many clients together Linda and I have seen reverse autoimmune diseases and get back the vitality and energy and pain-free life that they want to have. So that's really what I would encourage anyone out there with an autoimmune disease. As Linda said, it's not a disease of the thyroid or the myelin sheath in multiple sclerosis or the skin or the joints. It is an imbalance of the immune system. And that is what must be addressed,
Yeah.
right? Silencing the symptoms with the medication does not address what's really going on, what's really causing this to happen in the first place. And that is an imbalanced hypervigilant, overwrought immune system.
Yeah.
And figuring out what are the triggers. It's always many layered. There's not usually just one thing. It's usually many, many different things that need to be addressed. But when you do that, you bring the immune system back into balance, and symptoms of a disease that you're being told can never be cured and that you just have to manage for the rest of your life miraculously disappear. And, I say miraculously using the air quotes, because it does seem sort of miraculous, but your body is miraculous. Your
Yes.
body is a miraculous self-healing machine when you know how to understand what it is communicating to you through your history, through your symptoms, and give it the love and care that it is begging you for, that it is crying out for. And a very dear friend and coach of both Linda and I's always says that your body, this human, is the only partner that you're guaranteed to have for your time on this planet, for your entire life, right? She is the only partner that you are guaranteed to have for this one lifetime. And no one else can listen to what she is trying to communicate and love and care for her in the way that she is asking for, except you. And you certainly may need some help with that process, from someone like Linda or me. And we would love to support you in that journey if that is where you are. But no one else, right? There is no magic pill. No one else can fix this for you. Partnering with someone who has the knowledge and experience and ability to support you in this process is really, really important. But this is your one and only partner, and it is up to you to love and care for and support her back to balance and health and vitality.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. That's so great. I know I missed a blink of it when the dogs barked, but I know what you said. I got the gist of it. And also, one other piece is like for me, I had multiple autoimmune conditions because when you're only addressing the symptoms, right, with a prescription or something, the body will keep yelling at you. No, no, you're not paying attention. No, that didn't really help. So now it's going to show up somewhere else and somewhere else and somewhere else. And I have had so many women get on the phone with me and talk to me about, oh, I just have so much going on. Like they don't even mention the digestive stuff, and they'll say whatever they say, and I'll say something about oh yeah, that too, yeah, like didn't even, they're so used to it, just like that's how it is. But multiple things, that is not the way God designed this machinery, and God knew what he was doing. It's not that we are that flawed. We're not living in alignment with how this needs to run. That's the bottom line. So, yeah, so we intend to, I think, pretty regularly, hopefully every week, get on and talk about something that we hope will make a difference for you, will give you a specific perspective. And if you wanted to work with Kristi, how would people get a hold of you?
You can reach out to me through Facebook Messenger. You can go to my website, which is just KristiCirignano.com. And there is a link there to schedule an initial wellness consult. That's generally the first step in working with me, is an initial wellness consult. And I have you fill out a really in-depth intake form. I have you send me any labs or testing results that you've had in the last 2 years. And I review all of that information really, really carefully. I spend several hours going through all of it. And then I like to spend several days just kind of letting that simmer in my subconscious mind and putting all of the pieces together. And then we meet for usually 90 minutes, sometimes 2 hours even, to go over all that information and begin to map out a plan to help you get where you want to be.
Awesome. So you can see Kristi's name there on the screen. If you wanted to reach out to her, you can find her on Facebook. Some of you might be in her tribe because this was posted. I think you shared this, right, Kristi?
Yeah,
So you might already know how to reach Kristi. But if you're more from my tribe, that's how you would do it. And if you wanted to really work with me on specifically the chronicness of stress and anxiety and how it relates to the patterning of your thinking, some past trauma, things that you haven't been able to move past and let go of in your body, anything like that. The spiritual connection. I do a lot of spiritual work with my clients. So if that's speaking to you, then you can reach out to me and send me a message on Facebook Messenger. So thank you so much. It was great, Kristi, to. Okay. So we look forward to next week, right? Doing it again on a slightly different topic, whatever that's going to be.
Yes, absolutely. We'll talk about it and figure out what the topic is going to be for next week. And if you all have things that you want to hear more about or to learn more about, let us know.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Thanks. All right, everybody, have a great day. Please say hello. If you watch the replay later, please say hello and where you're from. And any questions, we'll make sure between the two of us they get answered. Okay?
All right. Thanks so
Great
much
day.
for that. Thanks for being here, you guys. We'll talk to you
Yep.
soon.
Bye.